What's up, everybody? I know there's a lot going on right here in the DC area, so I thought it would be a good time to get a quick pulse on what's happening in the housing market. I'm going to talk about what's happening nationally, but more specifically, I'm going to break down what's happening here in Washington, DC, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Northern Virginia, and how these national trends are affecting us right here. I'm going to go through some real data, some of the most recent headlines regarding the housing market, and then wrap it all up so you guys get a really good idea of what's happening now and what's to come. Some of the headlines do talk about the political climate right here in the DC area, but I want to be really clear. This is not a political video, so if that's what you're expecting, you got to head to another channel. This is just a straight up housing market update so you guys can make smart decisions. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the big driver of buyer behavior: mortgage rates. We just got a very real shift. Freddie Mac's weekly survey showed the average 30-year fix falling to about 6.35%, which was the largest one-week drop in a year. Freddie Mac's chief economist put it bluntly: the 30-year fixed rate mortgage fell 15 basis points from last week, the largest weekly drop in the past year. He also added, mortgage rates are heading in the right direction and home buyers have noticed after purchase applications have jumped. The drop in rates is most likely already baked into the current mortgage rates, but there is sentiment that rates may fall even further. This is consistent with the Mortgage Bankers Association's weekly data, which showed applications up 9.2% as rates eased. Zooming out a bit, Realtor.com's weekly tracker summed up the national vibe right now. The housing market remains stuck, though prices are starting to show signs of slipping. Translation: more options are sitting longer, and sellers are tweaking expectations. But we are not in a free fall, more like a slow thaw with pockets of strength. Okay, what about the DMV specifically? By the way, if you are new to my channel, my name is Caryn Gardiner, born and raised here in the DMV and a top producing realtor. I've been helping families buy and sell homes here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia for over 20 years with hundreds of successful transactions. Every day I work with people just like you who want to make the DMV their new home, so I like to keep people updated on the latest housing market data. Let's start in the district. Fresh August numbers from GCAR show DC's median sold price at $670,000, which is up 6.3% year over year. The average sold price is $855,292, which is down 2.8% year over year. Average days on market ticked up to 44 days, which is up 10% year over year. And closed sales came in at 544, which is also up 4.6% year over year. Active listings were up in August 14.37% to 2,626, but new listings were down 9.71% to 679. One of the indicators that really shows what's happening in the housing market is the months of supply. A balanced market is historically anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Anything over 6 months is considered a buyer's market, and anything under 4 months is considered a seller's market. Right now, DC is showing 4.9 months of supply. 5-year average, just to give you context, is 3.2 months of supply. If you're wondering about competitiveness on the ground, Redfin still characterizes DC as somewhat competitive, with homes typically selling about 2% below list price and going pending in roughly 2 months, with hot homes moving faster. That aligns with what we're seeing in the field. Showings are steady, serious buyers are out, but they are price sensitive. Okay, now for Montgomery County. August median sold price came in at $619,000, down 2.5% year over year. Average sold price is $757,486, which is up 2.7% year over year, with average days on market at 29 days, which is up 70.6% year over year. That is a huge jump. Closed sales came in at 848, down 1.7% year over year. Active listings in August were up 50% to 1,710 listings, and new listings were down 2.3% to 806. Let's talk months of supply, because that is the best quick pulse of balance. Montgomery County shows 2.1 months of supply, with the 5-year average being 1.3 months. So still a seller's market, and I am going to talk about what I'm seeing boots on the ground in a bit. Okay, so region-wide for DC and Montgomery County, months of supply in August was about 3.3 months, up from the 5-year August average of 2.1 months. That's more inventory than we're used to. Buyers have a bit more breathing room, but 3.3 months is still short of a truly balanced market. And then there's Northern Virginia. August median sold price came in at $705,000, up 2.7% year over year. Average sold price is $818,557, which is also up 3.8% year over year, with average days on market at 25 days, up 47.1%. Closed sales came in at 2,568, up 1.8% year over year. Active listings in August were up 38.6% to 4,307, and new listings were down 1% to 2,406. Nova shows 1.8 months of supply, with the 5-year average at 1.3 months. So still very much a seller's market. Now that we got some of the data out of the way, there are two outside forces that people keep asking me about. First, how broader economic risk might filter into housing. Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi flagged something worth watching in Jason Ma's article in Fortune, titled, "This housing data is the most critical economic variable for predicting recessions, and it's now at the lowest level since pandemic shutdowns." He noted that Moody's own leading economic indicator that uses machine learning has estimated the odds of a recession in the next 12 months are now at 48%. A crucial component in the Moody's indicator comes from the housing market. The algorithm has identified building permits as the most critical economic variable for predicting recessions. And while permits have been holding up reasonably well as builders supported sales through interest rate buydowns and other incentives, inventories of unsold homes are now high and on the rise, Zandi warned. In response, builders are pulling back and permits have started to slump. They are now as low as they've been since the pandemic shutdown. So why do we care? If builders pull back on permits, new supply slows and we lean more on existing homes, right when affordability is still tight. In the short run, that can keep a floor under prices. In the long run, that can deepen our supply shortage. Second, the mood in DC around safety headlines and federal workforce changes. Again, not politics, just housing. In late August, the district saw a sharp DC-specific slowdown that didn't show up the same way in the suburbs. Axios, citing Bright MLS data, reported that the last week in August brought a 5.7% weekly drop in new pendings and 6.3% lower than the same week on a prior year. Fewer new listings and fewer showings. Bright's chief economist, Lisa Sturdivant, called it a pause tied to DC-specific federal actions, and she stressed resilience. Her words, "There's definitely this watchfulness among sellers and buyers in DC. She has been clear that she does not see this as a collapse for demand for city living." On the safety headlines, she said, "This is not the beginning of a downward spiral for the district's housing market. And also, I think it's a pause and a reset." That mirrors what many sellers and buyers are telling me. They're watchful, but they're not fleeing. She also noted that with some federal buyouts and job changes rolling through, with buyout payments ending later this summer, more selling activity may still be on the horizon. Practically speaking, that can show up as a little extra listing volume in certain neighborhoods, which is part of why we're seeing more active inventory, even as rates only recently started to ease. Northern Virginia Magazine summarized the Bright survey with this takeaway. 43% say layoffs and cuts have driven more selling activity, and 38% say they are causing home prices to lower. At the same time, regional economists warn not to over-attribute every wobble to layoffs alone, given long-standing underbuilding and pent-up demand. All right, how do you use this if you're buying or selling in the next 60 to 90 days? In DC, with a $670,000 median and an $855,292 average in August, sellers still get activity when they price surgically and present beautifully, especially for renovated row homes and well-located condos near transit. Buyers do get more breathing room. A 44 days on market average means you can negotiate on condition and timing, but you still have to move with intent on the standout because hot homes in DC are still selling super fast. In Montgomery County, pairing the 619,000 median with a 757,486 average tells the story. Value is holding, but buyers finally get a chance to be choosy. 19 days median and 29 days average on market. Sellers win with pre-market prep and data-driven pricing. Buyers, well, they're using the extra inventory to weigh school clusters, commute routes, and walkability without rushing into week one decisions on every home. In Northern Virginia, the regional numbers, 705,000 median, 818,557 average, 14/25 days on market, feel like more choice without collapse. Inside the NVAR footprints, 1.81 months of supply is still lean enough to produce multiple offers for close-in turnkey listings, but buyers will see more second week opportunities than last year. Bottom line, if you're buying in DC or Montgomery County, months of supply is around 3-ish for the combined area, means you do have more negotiating space than a year ago, especially on homes that have been sitting a couple weeks. But truly turnkey homes that show well are moving really fast. So what am I seeing boots on the ground? Because as I mentioned previously, I am a full-time realtor here in the DMV. I'm seeing a mixed market. One house just last week in Montgomery County had 4 offers and went almost $180,000 over list price. It showed beautifully. The seller had done all the right things. It was move-in condition and it got the results. Another house had 1 offer, and I got my buyers a $27,000 buyer credit after the inspections. It is more important than ever to work with a seasoned realtor who has been through many markets, not just the past 5 years of a seller's market, so you can get the best representation. For sellers, houses need to be move-in ready, marketed professionally, and show beautifully to get the best results. Money is still more expensive than it was a few years ago, and buyers just don't have that excess to fix repairs and make upgrades. Rates at roughly the low to mid 6s and possibly even lower can meaningfully change monthly payments versus just a few weeks ago. So it's worth revisiting your pre-approval with your lender. Freddie Mac summed it up well. Mortgage rates are headed in the right direction and home buyers have noticed. If that continues, expect more competition to creep back in. One last macro piece to keep on your radar. Permits and residential investment are soft nationally. That's not a today or tomorrow thing, but if it persists, it can limit supply and keep our region's attractive, job-rich neighborhoods more competitive than you'd expect in a cooling cycle. Zandy's machine learning dashboard bumped 12-month recession odds to the high 40s percentage-wise. So we'll watch how that flows into rates, hiring, and by extension, buyer confidence here. So let me land this plane with a quick wrap-up. Inventory is up versus last year. The pace has cooled a notch. Prices are holding to modestly higher, except on those exceptional properties. And a dip in mortgage rates is bringing some buyers back. But it's very selective and price sensitive. And a market that, depending on your zip code and price point, can feel either balanced or still really tight. In DC, lean into value forward pricing and make sure the why this house is obvious in the first 8 listing photos and the first minute of your tour. In MoCo, the shift in tempo means you can structure offers with more certainty, inspections, and timing flexibility, especially on those homes that reach week 2, because homes in that first week, if they're priced well and they show well, but they're still selling in multiple offers, like the example I just told you. In Nova, treat week 1 like your Super Bowl if you're a seller. If you're buying, expect some competition on those turnkey close-in listings, but you'll have options in the more broader region. If you're listing, the best outcome comes from prep and precision. If you're buying, you finally may have time and some choices. Just have your lender strategy ready so you can lock in if the rates do wiggle down a bit. If you want a specific neighborhood read or you're trying to purchase or sell this fall, just reach out. I'm happy to run some numbers by for you or stop by the house and give you my opinion. I just want you guys to walk in with your eyes wide open. And like I said earlier, this is a confusing mixed market. And again, this is a housing update. It is not politics. So please do not comment on anything political. We watch rates, inventory, and local confidence, because those are the dials that actually affect prices and contracts. If this was helpful, give it a like and share it with anybody who's thinking about moving to the DMV. And like I said earlier, if you would like our help, just send me an email. We'll set up a Zoom. We'll get you started. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.